Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast. Using my sportscasting background, I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players to gain more insight on what makes this team go. As the Detroit Lions enter a new gritty era, we'll look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we take a quick look at the Detroit Lions' Week 7 loss against the Baltimore Ravens. We're still in Baltimore, so this is going to be a quick hitter because we'll have our full podcast episode coming out a little bit later than normal. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hey everyone, this is Lomas Brown, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
As we get into it, just a reminder to the listeners, please hit the subscribe and like button. It is helping us build momentum. This instant reaction is not an easy one to do, so this is going to be a short episode. We have a lot to digest coming out of this game, and we're going to get to that. Folks, in this one, we've got to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, there was some good, but there was some bad, a lot of bad, and there was ugly. The final score of this game was 38-6. That's an ugly score. There's no sugarcoating it. The game did not start well. We all know that. And the truth is, this one never felt competitive. And Coach Dan Campbell did not shy away from that after the game.
It's a tough one. They jumped all over us. Lamar gave us problems. We could never apply enough pressure, and when we did, then we'd let him out of there, and then our covering. We knew we were going to need a challenge. Coverage, play some man, and we just, the combination of not getting very much pressure and then having to cover a long time, we didn't handle it well. And offensively, we never got in a rhythm early, and we just kind of felt like they're playing with house money over there. You get up so much by a certain portion in that game, then it's, they're kind of doing whatever they want to do.
Now, for starters, walking into this one, Jerry Jacobs was ruled out before the game. So that was not good news for the secondary, and the Ravens came out and they passed the ball. Now, when the Lions looked like they might get a stop, Lamar Jackson did what his MVP candidate-like things does, and he made plays. He threw for 357 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day. The Lions, they could not stop the pass, and then it looked like they tried to make some adjustments to help with that, and suddenly the Ravens were able to run the ball. Now, it was a bad combination to start out. The Lions' offense came out flat, came out tight. I'm not sure what it was, and the defense could not get stops. Before you blinked, it was 28-0. Ravens were leading halfway through the second quarter, and the Lions did not even have a first down at that point. Now, the Lions, they had a chance to score on the final drive of the first half, as well as the first drive to open the second half, but they came away with 0 points in both situations, and you just can't do this against this good of a Baltimore Ravens team. Now, we talked about going into this game, the Lions were going to need to bring their A game to this one, and they did not do that. That did not happen. And to compound things or make things even worse, if you will, the Baltimore Ravens did. This is probably the best game, no probably about it. This is the best game the Ravens have played, the best start they've gotten out to. Lamar Jackson played like the MVP candidate he is, and their defense kept the Lions off balance, especially early on. Folks, it's really important to remember this and understand this. The Baltimore Ravens are a really good football team, and they looked at their best today. They did everything well. Now, injury concerns here, folks. We had some injury concerns come up in this game. Mohamed Ibrahim went down with an injury. He was carted off the field. Khalif Raymond got banged up late. Coach Campbell addressed both of those after the game as well.
First of all, Mo's in the hospital, and he's having surgery right now. Sounds like he'll be okay, but he's going to stay here overnight. He's tough. I hate that for him. But, that certainly puts a strain on our team. And then Khalif is all right. He got some cramps there at the end, but he'll be fine.
All right, some other quick observations here. Jahmyr Gibbs played much more of a role in this game, and we started seeing more of what he might be or what he could look like for the Lions. He had 68 yards rushing and a touchdown, plus he had 58 yards receiving. They went to him a lot at one point. It seemed like that kind of got them in a rhythm, but maybe they went to him too much. Amon-Ra St. Brown had his catches, but the offense looked tight in general early on, and I don't think you can point to any one person. It was just a combination of things. And Jamison Williams was held for 0 catches on the day. He had 6 targets. And Jared Goff was sacked 5 times for a total of 31 yards. He had a fumble. I believe it was called a fumble. Penei Sewell picked that one up early and made some nice moves and actually thought he was going to maybe grab a first down on that play, but it did not happen. Injuries in the Detroit Lions secondary are really showing. Even with Brian Branch coming back, you had some depth missing right there, especially down to our second and third defensive backs. Now, it should not be a total shock that this happened in the secondary. If you looked at the game last week against Tampa Bay, there were multiple plays that the Buccaneers had a chance to make a big play. Fortunately, the Detroit Lions defensive line helped create a situation that made that difficult to happen and kept Baker Mayfield on the run. They got past deflections and caused off-target throws. But in this game against the Ravens, that was not the case. Lamar Jackson, again, I already said he had 357 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He had chunk plays to Gus Edwards, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Odell Beckham Jr., Rashad Bateman, even Patrick Picard. Folks, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 6 different chunk plays of 20 yards or more, at least 6 of them. That is not how you're going to win football games. That really hurt the game early on and stretched the Lions' defense, and it changed how they had to play. One thing we're going to have to really look at with the injuries that have taken place is the Lions are going to have to consider before the trade deadline, do they make a move and do they try to address some of the depth concerns in that secondary? Because that is a concern at this point, and the Lions will hopefully be buyers on that. We're going to talk a lot more about that coming up in our next episode or two. Folks, we said this was ugly. We said this was difficult to hear. I mean, if you look at the team stats, the Detroit Lions had 18 first downs to the Ravens 23, but that does not tell the story. The Lions did not have one for a very long time. The Ravens did so much of their damage that they were able to coast in the second half. Again, if you look at time of possession, it's only a minute difference. But you know in the first half, the Detroit Lions, especially the first quarter and halfway through the second, were severely lacking right there. And so coming out flat, coming out the way they did, and the Ravens coming out firing on all cylinders the way they did, really made this a different contest throughout. Folks, we started with the ugly in this little quick recap, instant reaction, and the bad, so that we could try to end with some of the good. And as for the good, let's talk about the fans here. We have to talk about what the city looked like and what it felt like in Baltimore, Maryland. The Baltimore scene. We got over here on Saturday, and there were a lot of Lions fans here. They were everywhere. We went out to lunch, and we saw Lions fans. We came across many Lions fans throughout different establishments. We went up at one in the evening during the Michigan State game. It kind of almost became an unofficial hosting of Detroit Lions fans gathering there. It's amazing what social media can do. The doorman said he had seen more out-of-state licenses than Maryland ones. It was great interacting with Detroit Lions fans. I spoke with one lady who had been to the Kansas City and the Tampa games as well, and she said she was not going to miss this one either. So if you want to talk about atmosphere, I mean, playing on the road, the Lions fans showed up. There were a lot of Lions fans there. Obviously, they weren't going to be loud like they were in the other games because the Lions were out of this so early. But early on, I mean, there were some great chants from the crowd before the game, as well as during tailgating. And I've never interacted with so many Detroit Lions fans on a road game like this before. Now, I've only been to a couple of road games, but this interaction really did help neutralize a little bit. It probably didn't feel like it because the Lions got behind so much, but it did play a role. It could have played a greater role if the Lions had started out a little differently than they did in this one. But I also think it goes to show that the Lions have started traveling, have started coming out, a la the Detroit Red Wings fans around the country. So it could be a sign of things to come. We had great weather for this game, but not such a great game. There's going to be a lot to digest coming out of this game, folks. Again, we'll have a full game recap and talk about major storylines for the Lions coming out of Week 7 loss. Probably coming out late Monday, early Tuesday, so be sure to look out for that. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. You can find all the episodes at notthesameoldlions.com. If you're listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe and like button. And while you're at it, tell your friends about the show, and please subscribe regardless of your listening platform. Until next time, stay gritty, my friends.